Every night at 9:17 p.m., my father made us kiss a photo of Mr. Bells and drink burning drops to stay awake because he believed our family would die if we slept. Then I found out Mr. Bells was the dead doctor who experimented on him as a teenager at a sleep disorder clinic. In my family, we had something called Wake Watch every single night. It wasn't like normal bedtime with stories and goodnight kisses. We'd go to bed at 9:17 p.m. exactly. My mom would ring this old brass bell 3 times from the hallway, and we'd all have to sit up immediately in our beds wearing our day clothes. The rule was simple. No one was allowed to sleep. No excuses. I remember the weight of exhaustion in my bones, how it felt like drowning in reverse. My little brother Sam would already be crying by the time Dad came around with that photo. A black and white picture of Mr. Bells, who Dad said saved our family years ago. We each had to kiss the glass, and I can still taste the Windex Mom used to clean it. Then came the drops. Dad would hold the brown bottle like wine, tilting our heads back one by one, that burning liquid that made your throat close up. He called it alert serum. Sam would gag and I'd grab his hand under the covers, squeezing it in our secret code that meant hold on, just hold on. Then came the next rule. Keep your eyes open while it burned or take another dose. I learned to cry without blinking. What called me was how other kids talked about dreams. In 4th grade, Megan Torres described flying over clouds in her sleep, and I didn't understand. I thought dreams were the hallucinations that came around 3 a.m. when the walls started breathing and shadow people sat on the edge of your bed. I thought everyone saw them, but the proving time was when I felt most alone. Every hour that bell would ring and we'd stumble to the living room for our tasks, math problems that swam on the page, memory games where I'd forget my own name. Sometimes Dad made us do jumping jacks until someone threw up, usually Sam. Show Mr. Bells we're ready, Dad would say, his own eyes red-rimmed and wild. Show him we deserve what he gave us. Mom would sit in the corner, knitting the same scarf she'd been working on for 3 years. Her hands shook too much to finish anything. I started breaking at 13. That night I fell asleep during Wake Watch. I was dreaming, real dreaming. I was at the beach with Sam, building sand castles, and for 30 perfect seconds I forgot about the bell and the drops and Mr. Bells' dead eyes in that photo. Dad didn't yell. He knelt beside my soaking bed and grabbed my face with both hands. He gave us a gift, he whispered, and his breath smelled like the drops. This is how we honor it. This is how we stay alive. I looked into his eyes and saw something terrible. He was scared. My father, who ran our nights like a drill sergeant, was absolute. That's when I started not running away, just one night of sleep. My friend Lisa didn't know why I cried when she showed me her bedroom. Pink walls, stuffed animals, a nightlight shaped like the moon. It looked like heaven. The night I finally refused Wake Watch, I thought Dad would explode. Instead, he went completely still. Mom dropped her knitting. Sam started hyperventilating. You're destroying everything, Dad said quietly. Everything Mr. Bells sacrificed for us. I just want to sleep, I said, and my voice broke on the word sleep like it was sacred. Mom reached for me. Please, honey, you don't understand what happens when effing what? I screamed. When we sleep like normal humans. Dad's face crumbled. For a second, I saw him as he really was. Not a tyrant, just a broken man trying to protect us from something that lived in his head. I left anyway. Lisa's mother tucked me in that night. Actually tucked me in, pulling the blankets up to my chin. I sobbed into her shoulder, and she probably thought I was some kind of abuse victim. She wasn't wrong. I slept for 12 hours and woke up alive. The revelation about Mr. Bells came months later, after I'd moved in with my aunt. I'd been helping her clean the attic when I mentioned him, casual as anything. Her confusion hit me like cold water. Nobody saved our family, she said slowly. Your father, he had problems. After what happened at that clinic, the world tilted. I drove home that night while my parents were at Sam's parent-teacher conference, tore through the house like a woman possessed, found that photo in the basement, hidden like contraband. When I saw the medical badge, Dr. Sam Bell, sleep disorder clinic, my legs gave out. The papers told a horror story. Dad, teenage and desperate to fix his insomnia, signed up for experimental treatment. Dr. Bell kept kids awake for days, pumping them full of stimulants, convinced humans could evolve past sleep, the psychotic breaks, the shutdowns. Dad's discharge notes saying he'd become devoted to the doctor's teachings. And at the bottom, in my father's shaky teenage writing, I will never forget what you taught me. I will pass on your gift. My hands were trembling as I read the final document. Dr. Bell, dead at 47 from fatal familial insomnia, a disease where you forget how to sleep until your body gives out. Time of death, 9:17 p.m. Dad chose that time. He knew. He believed the doctor's curse lived in our blood, and staying awake was the only way to outrun it. I stood there in that basement, holding proof that my entire childhood was built on a dead man's delusion. My phone buzzed. Sam. 3 words that made my blood freeze. Why'd you leave? I shoved the papers into my jacket and ran. The house felt different now, poisoned by truth. Every family photo on the wall showed us with those hollow eyes, those forced smiles. We looked like hostages. Back at my aunt's place, I spread everything across her kitchen table. She made tea while I explained, her face growing paler with each document. When I finished, she set down her cup with shaking hands. Your father was just a kid, she whispered. 17 when he went to that clinic. Our parents thought they were helping his insomnia. I wanted to feel sympathy. I couldn't. Not when Sam was still trapped in that house, still drinking those drops, still kissing that photo every night at 9:17. The next morning, I drove to Sam's school, waited outside until I saw him trudging toward the entrance, backpack dragging on the ground. Even from across the parking lot, I could see how he swayed on his feet. I rolled down my window to call out, but a hand grabbed my shoulder. Dad, he'd been waiting too. Get away from him, he said, voice deadly calm. You don't understand what you're risking. He's exhausted, I said. He's 11 years old and he can barely stand up straight. Better tired than dead. Dad's grip tightened. The insomnia is in our blood. Dr. Bell proved it. If we sleep too deeply, if we let our guard down, it activates. We'll die like he did, unable to sleep ever again until our hearts give out. That's not how genetic diseases work. You think I'm crazy? He released me, stepping back. Fine, but when it happens to you, when you're lying awake for the 3rd week straight, feeling your brain eat itself, remember that I tried to save you. He walked away, leaving me shaking in my car. Part of me, the 13-year-old who'd seen her father's terror, almost believed him. That afternoon, I called CPS, explained everything while pacing my aunt's living room. The woman on the phone sounded tired herself. Without physical evidence of abuse, there's not much we can do, she said. Sleep schedules are considered parenting choices unless there's medical neglect. He's giving them stimulants. Are they prescription? I don't know. We'll send someone to check, but I need you to understand, unusual parenting isn't illegal. I hung up feeling hollow, called a lawyer next, then another. They all said said the same thing. Without proof of immediate danger, courts rarely intervene in parenting decisions. Meanwhile, Sam's teacher called my aunt's house, Mrs. Patterson, young and worried. "I'm not supposed to contact you," she said, "but I'm concerned." Sam fell asleep during reading time, and when I woke him, he started crying about bells. "Is everything okay at home?" I told her everything. She listened, then sighed. "I've documented his fatigue, but my principal says without bruises or malnutrition, it's not enough for a report. I'm sorry." That night, I couldn't sleep. Ironic, right? I lay in my aunt's guest bed, staring at the ceiling, checking my pulse every few minutes. What if Dad was right? What if Dr. Bell had discovered something real? Some genetic time bomb in our DNA? At exactly 9:17, I jolted upright, heart racing. My body still remembered. The next day, I made a decision. If the system wouldn't help, I'd have to document everything myself. I bought a camera, started parking outside the house at night. Through the windows, I could see them moving through their routines. The bell, the drops, the proving time. One night, I saw Sam collapse during jumping jacks, just crumpled to the floor like a puppet with cut strings. Mom rushed to him while Dad stood there checking his watch. They got him up, gave him more drops, continued the routine. I had it all on video. This had to be enough. The CPS worker who came to review my evidence looked exhausted herself. She watched the footage, took notes, asked questions. "I'll file a report," she said finally. "But you should know, the investigation could take months, and your parents will be notified." "What about Sam?" "Unless we find immediate danger. He stays in the home during investigation." That night, my phone rang at 3 a.m. "Mom, how could you?" she sobbed. "You're going to call us all. You're inviting it in." "Mom, listen to me. Dr. Bell was mentally ill. Fatal familial insomnia is incredibly rare. You don't have it. Dad doesn't have it. We're just tired. Your father knows things," she whispered. "He's seen what happens when we let our guard down. Please come home. We can protect you." I hung up, checked my pulse, wondered if going crazy ran in families too. The investigation started the next week. There's something deeply unsettling about how the dad talks about Dr. Bell like he's some kind of savior when he's clearly just a doctor who lost his mind. Makes me wonder what really happened to this father at 17 that broke him so completely. A tired-looking man in a wrinkled suit came to interview me at my aunt's house. He asked about my childhood, about the routines, about my parents' beliefs. "Your father seems to genuinely believe he's protecting his children," he said finally. "That makes this complicated. Delusions aren't abuse unless they result in neglect or harm. Sleep deprivation is harm. I agree. But proving it in court is different. We need medical evaluations, psychological assessments, and your parents have rights too." I learned the system wasn't built for this kind of thing. It knew what to do with bruises and broken bones. It didn't know what to do with a father so terrified of a genetic curse that he'd stolen his children's sleep. Weeks passed. The investigation crawled forward. I kept documenting, kept watching. Sam looked worse every day. His teacher called again, said he'd fallen asleep standing up during recess. Then Dad made a mistake. He posted on Facebook a long ramble about protecting his family from genetic predisposition and Dr. Bell's legacy. He mentioned the drops by name, prescription stimulants he'd been crushing and mixing with energy drink powder. I screenshot everything, sent it to the investigator, the lawyer, anyone who would listen. Finally, something shifted. The court ordered a medical evaluation for Sam. I wasn't allowed to be there, but Mrs. Patterson called me after. "He's lost 12 pounds since school started," she said. "The doctor found signs of chronic exhaustion. They're taking this seriously now." But serious meant slow. More evaluations, more hearings, more nights of Sam swaying through Weight Watch while the system ground forward. I started visiting Dr. Bell's other patients, found them through old clinic records and social media. Most wouldn't talk to me. The ones who did painted a picture of a man obsessed with evolution, convinced humans were one breakthrough away from transcending biological needs. "He made us believe we were special," one woman told me. "Chosen to push humanity forward. Your father was his star pupil, always volunteering for extra sessions, always pushing harder. Did anyone actually develop fatal insomnia?" She looked away. "Number. But Jamie developed chronic insomnia so bad he couldn't take it anymore. And Marcus had a heart attack at 23. Dr. Bell called them weak, said they didn't believe hard enough. I drove home feeling sick. Dad wasn't just continuing Dr. Bell's work. He was trying to prove himself worthy of a dead man's approval." That night, I made another decision. I called Mom when I knew Dad would be at work. "Meet me," I said. "Just you, please." She came to a coffee shop looking like a ghost. Her hands shook so bad she couldn't hold her cup. "I know you're scared," I said, "but Sam needs help. You see that, right? Your father means well," she whispered. "He's so frightened. Ever since Dr. Bell died, he's been convinced it's coming for us." "Mom, how long since you've had a full night's sleep?" She started crying. "I can't remember. Years, maybe longer. That's not protection. That's torture." "But what if he's right? What if we stop and the insomnia comes and we die like Dr. Bell?" I took her hands. They felt like bird bones. "Then we get help from real doctors, not a dead man's theories. Please, Mom, for Sam." She pulled away. "I can't. I'm too tired to fight anymore." That's when I understood. Dad wasn't the only one who believed. Mom had been broken too, worn down by years of exhaustion until the delusion seemed safer than reality. The custody hearing was set for next month. My lawyer warned me it would be ugly. Dad had hired someone too, was preparing to argue that I was trying to destroy the family out of spite. "He'll bring up your breakdown at 13, she said. "Paint you as unstable." I was sleep deprived. "I know, we'll argue that, but judges are reluctant to remove children unless there's clear danger." I wanted to scream. How was chronic exhaustion not clear danger? How was feeding kids prescription stimulants not obvious abuse? But I kept documenting, kept fighting, because somewhere in that house, Sam was still ringing bells at 9:17, still drinking drops that burned, still trying to prove himself to a ghost. And I was the only one who seemed to understand that love could look like torture when filtered through enough fear. The real horror wasn't that my father was evil. It was that he genuinely believed he was saving us. Every sleepless night, every forced dose, every exhausted tear, in his mind, it was all love. That's what made it so hard to stop. The morning after my conversation with Mom, I woke to find Sam's text waiting. A photo of his breakfast plate with 3 caffeine pills arranged like a smiley face. My hands trembled as I saved the image to my evidence folder. At the grocery store later, I spotted Mom first. She stood frozen in the supplement aisle while Dad loaded box after box of caffeine pills into their cart. His hands shook holding that same brown bottle from our childhood, the one he'd pour the drops from. When Mom saw me, her face crumpled. She rushed over, grabbing my arms with desperate fingers. Dad followed, calm and collected. He stepped close enough that only I could hear his whispered words about what happens to children who betray their families. To the concerned shoppers gathering around us, I looked unhinged, rambling about doctors and conspiracies while this devoted father tried to calm his troubled daughter. The store manager asked if I needed assistance. Dad answered for me, explaining my history of episodes, how stress made me see patterns that weren't there. Mom stood silent, her exhausted eyes avoiding mine. Back at my aunt's house, she delivered news that knocked the wind from me. The insurance claim on their jointly owned rental property required Dad's signature. Without it, she'd lose the house she'd lived in for 20 years. She promised to stay neutral, but I saw the calculation in her eyes. Family loyalty had a price, and mine was getting too expensive. The next morning brought an impossible choice. My job interview at the only company willing to overlook my recent instability coincided exactly with Sam's school conference. Mrs. Patterson had hinted about documenting exhaustion concerns. I chose the interview, telling myself I needed income to help Sam long term. During those 2 hours, my parents withdrew Sam from public school. By the time I arrived at the building, his desk had been cleared out. The secretary explained they'd be homeschooling now, for a more flexible schedule that suited their family's needs. My apartment application hit another wall. The landlord required a reference from a family member. My parents were listed as my previous landlords from when I'd lived at home. Without their cooperation, I had nowhere to go. That same day, Sam's gym teacher called to report he'd failed his fitness assessment due to extreme fatigue. The school's hands were tied now that he'd been withdrawn. The irony struck that night as I lay awake past 2 a.m., my heart racing at every small sound. My body had learned Dad's lessons too well. The walk-in clinic doctor noted my family history of sleep disorders when I finally sought help. Getting prescription sleep aids meant revealing everything about our alternative health practices. The doctor's expression shifted from concern to suspicion. Was I substance seeking, following in my father's footsteps? Dad's performance at the pharmacy was masterful. When questioned about purchasing Sam's vitamins in bulk, he broke down completely. Other customers saw a devoted father, overwhelmed by caring for his special needs child. The pharmacist patted his shoulder, assured him he was doing his best. I watched from my car as sympathy poured over him like absolution. Sam's indoctrination showed during our next supervised meeting. He explained how our family was special, evolved beyond normal humans who wasted their lives sleeping. His teacher had asked about his tiredness, and he'd told her I was sick, just like Mom said. The words came out practiced, mechanical, like he'd rehearsed them during proving time. My attempts to document his exhaustion turned sinister through Dad's lens. The doorbell camera footage showed me outside their house at exactly 9:17 p.m., checking if the lights were on. The neighborhood watch app flagged my behavior as suspicious. Comments poured in about the estranged daughter stalking her family. The CPS worker's initial assessment felt like a punch to the gut. Without medical documentation, my claims of sleep deprivation were unsubstantiated. Exhaustion alone wasn't enough for mandatory reporting. The case sat in administrative limbo, requiring follow-up that might never come. Desperation drove me to use Mom's email password, unchanged since I was 13. Her inbox revealed a support group of Dr. Bell's former patients, true believers who credited him with expanding their consciousness. They shared tips for keeping children awake, discussed which stimulants worked best, celebrated their evolution beyond sleep. One of Dad's coworkers posted Instagram stories from a sleepover. There was Sam at midnight doing jumping jacks in their living room while other kids watched movies. The caption read, "This kid never stops. Such energy." No one questioned why an 11-year-old was exercising at midnight. My therapist received a subpoena. Our sessions discussing family persecution fears would become evidence. Every time I'd cried about feeling watched, about Dad's influence reaching everywhere, would be twisted into paranoia. The lawyer explained how this would look to a judge, a pattern of instability dating back years. I tried recording Dad during a chance encounter at the hardware store. The moment he spotted my phone, his entire demeanor shifted. He spoke loudly about normal bedtimes, healthy routines, how much he loved his children. Other customers smiled at the devoted father. Sleep deprivation turns into legal chess, where Dad's playing 4 moves ahead while everyone else is still learning the rules. This man's got gaslighting down to an actual science. I looked like the unstable one, secretly recording innocent conversations. The confrontation at school pickup was orchestrated perfectly. Dad arrived early, chatting with other parents about Sam's homeschool curriculum. When I approached, he transformed into the concerned father, asking if I was taking care of myself, if I'd found help for my issues. Sam swayed on his feet beside him, but no one noticed the exhaustion when Dad's performance commanded all attention. The CPS worker called with devastating news. Someone had filed a complaint about her own childcare arrangements, questioning her judgment and pursuing unfounded cases. She spoke carefully, but I heard the message: back off or lose her job. The case would be closed unless new evidence emerged. That night, I discovered Dad had converted my childhood bedroom into the new Wake Watch space. Instagram showed a cozy reading nook with my old stuffed animals arranged on shelves. The brass bell sat on what used to be my desk. The caption talked about creating special family bonding time in their daughter's former room, honoring her memory while she worked through her troubles. Dad's offer came through my lawyer. Supervised visits with Sam if I admitted I'd misunderstood family traditions, if I acknowledged my history of mental health struggles and agreed to counseling. The alternative was clear: continue fighting and lose access to Sam completely. My refusal was framed as choosing vendetta over relationship with my brother. The truth about the alert serum hit me during late-night research. High-dose liquid caffeine mixed with vitamins, harmful to children but not illegal. No controlled substances, nothing that would trigger automatic intervention. Dad had learned from Dr. Bell's mistakes, kept everything just barely within legal bounds. I found Mom's journal by accident while searching her cloud storage for more evidence. Her handwriting deteriorated over the years, from neat loops to shaky scratches. The early entries showed a woman trying to protect her children, questioning the necessity of Wake Watch, suggesting they see real doctors about the family curse. The transformation was documented page by page. Sleep deprivation wore her down like water on stone. By year 3, she wrote about seeing shadow people, about how the Bells kept the fatal insomnia at bay. By year 5, she believed completely. Her children needed protection from their genetic destiny, and only Dad's vigilance kept them safe. My aunt's choice came during a tearful conversation in her kitchen. She could house me or maintain a relationship with her brother. Dad was still family, despite everything. She chose me, but established strict boundaries. No using her home as a base for surveillance. No involving her in legal proceedings. No putting her property at risk. The decision to document my own sleep deprivation felt like stepping into Dad's world. I live-streamed my exhaustion, showed how judgment deteriorated, how hallucinations crept in after 72 hours awake. Comments poured in calling me attention-seeking, saying saying I was proving my father's point about genetic predisposition. My chance encounter with Sam at his doctor appointment was carefully orchestrated. I slipped a note to the nurse while maintaining a smile, watching Sam list his daily supplements like a grocery list. The nurse's expression stayed neutral, but I saw her pocket the paper. Small victories felt hollow when Sam wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom's journal surfaced in shared cloud storage before Dad realized it existed. I downloaded everything, backed it up in multiple locations. Her documentation of their descent into delusion was more powerful than any evidence I'd gathered, but using it meant betraying her trust, weaponizing her illness against her. Mrs. Patterson finally emerged as a mandatory reporter after months of hesitation. Sam's exhaustion had become impossible to ignore. She filed the report that afternoon, her hands shaking as she submitted the documentation. The next day, she was placed on administrative leave pending investigation for failure to report earlier. The custody evaluation moved forward with glacial inevitability. Fighting it while pursuing mandatory reporting meant missing crucial deadlines. Every hour spent helping Sam potentially meant losing him forever. The system demanded perfect compliance while offering no protection. My savings drained faster than water. Legal consultations, court fees, documentation costs. Meanwhile, Dad used the joint account Mom never closed, funding his defense with money that should have been theirs together. I watched my bank balance dwindle while his social media showed Sam's bedroom upgrades, new homeschool supplies, the perfect family life minus one troubled daughter. The confrontation at Sam's birthday dinner was my breaking point. I'd waited outside the restaurant, watching through windows as they celebrated. When I entered to give him a card, the entire room went silent. Sam's face crumpled. Dad stood slowly, protective. I'd ruined my brother's special day, traumatized him with my presence. The other families there saw only a disturbed woman terrorizing a child. Losing my job felt inevitable. The presentation was important, a make-or-break moment for the struggling company. But my body betrayed me. 70 hours of accumulated exhaustion crashing down. I woke to concerned faces, my boss among them. He was Dad's electrical client, had heard about our family situation. My termination came with sympathy, but no recourse. Living in my car became the new normal. I parked in different locations each night, showering at the gym until my membership expired. Dad's Facebook posts about upgrading Sam's bedroom felt like mockery. Custom blackout curtains to help him rest better. A white noise machine for peaceful sleep. Every comfort denied during Wake Watch now performed for social media. The church volunteer who delivered meals to my aunt mentioned seeing Sam at youth group. Even strangers noticed his exhaustion now. He'd fallen asleep during prayer, jerking awake when the organ played. The volunteer thought it was sweet. A child so devoted he attended despite being tired. She didn't know he hadn't slept properly in years. My investigation's ripple effects hit Mrs. Patterson hardest. The failure to report investigation expanded, questioning every interaction she'd had with Sam. Her teaching license was suspended, legal fees mounted, her marriage strained under the pressure. Her daughter asked why Mommy cried at dinner, why Daddy slept on the couch. I'd destroyed a family trying to save one. Sam's plea came through a mutual friend. Stop ruining everything. Stop making it worse. He was fine. The family was fine. Why couldn't I just leave them alone? The words sounded rehearsed, but the pain felt real. My brother saw me as the villain now, the one who brought chaos to their ordered world. My aunt's question during a late-night conversation haunted me. What if the insomnia was hereditary? What if I was seeing patterns because I needed them to exist? My own sleeplessness could be proof of Dad's theories or trauma response. Without rest, I couldn't trust my own judgment anymore. The decision to admit accessing Dad's accounts illegally felt like stepping off a cliff, but maintaining credibility meant confessing to crimes. The judge would weigh my invasion of privacy against Dad's documented abuse. Legal strategy demanded honesty that could lead to prosecution. Evidence of my failures emerged from Sam's room. Hidden notes I'd missed during my escape. Pleas for help I'd been too focused on my own freedom to see. He'd written about the shadow people, about throwing up during proving time, about wanting to sleep like other kids. I'd left him behind to save myself first. Dad's cease and desist letter arrived with surgical precision. Harassment, stalking, defamation. The legal language dressed up his threats in professional legitimacy. Stop or face a restraining order that would end any chance of seeing Sam again. Through it all, Dad's genuine terror remained the most disturbing element. He truly believed fatal insomnia stalked our bloodline. His fear was real, making him sympathetic to investigators despite systematic abuse. Mental illness explained but didn't excuse. The system struggled to parse intention from impact. My transformation into a strategic operator felt like losing myself. Every interaction became evidence gathering. Sam's trust was currency to spend on documentation. I coached him through recording videos during our supervised meetings, betraying our relationship to save him. Love became tactical. Affection transformed into legal strategy. The small victory of reopening the investigation tasted like ash when Sam stopped responding to texts. He'd recognized the betrayal, understood I'd used him for evidence. My brother was learning Dad's lessons about trust, about family, about the price of protection. Dad's counterclaim gained momentum with each piece of evidence, the doorbell footage, the Instagram documentation, the hardware store recording. I looked unstable, obsessed, dangerous. His narrative of a concerned father protecting his family from a troubled daughter resonated with investigators. The formal custody evaluation escalated everything. Teachers, family members, CPS workers would testify about their observations. Truth would emerge in fragments, filtered through exhaustion and agenda. The system would decide if Wake Watch constituted abuse or unusual parenting. Sam's crucial testimony revealed unexpected allies. He mentioned Mrs. Chen, the Sunday school teacher who let him nap during craft time because God wanted children to rest. Small kindnesses from strangers who sensed something wrong without understanding what. But his loyalty to Dad remained unshaken, parroting beliefs about evolution and superiority. Former colleagues testified about my increasing instability. The way this dad turned that childhood bedroom into a Wake Watch shrine feels like something else is going on here, using stuffed animals and nostalgia to make control look cozy. The missed meetings, the exhaustion, the obsession with family drama, they meant well, trying to contextualize my behavior. But their words painted a picture of someone coming apart, unable to separate paranoia from reality. The evaluator's preliminary notes were devastating. Sleep deprivation alone wasn't legally abuse without physical harm or medical neglect. Unusual parenting methods fell within legal bounds. Dad's mental illness didn't automatically disqualify him as a parent. The law protected parental rights over children's sleep. Contacting Dr. Bell's other patients through Mom's email yielded one willing witness. weakness. She'd escaped, but her brother hadn't. She provided a written statement about the clinic's methods, the long-term damage, the suicides and heart attacks among survivors, but fear kept her from appearing in person. Her own stability remained too fragile to risk examination. Her statement revealed the clinic's closure after a child's death. Exhaustion-induced accident, they called it. A boy who hallucinated from sleep deprivation, who walked into traffic seeing things that weren't there. Dr. Bell called it weakness. The state called it negligence. But the damage was done. His followers already devoted to the cause. The pattern among survivors was clear. Either embrace the insomnia as evolution, or spend life fighting its shadow. Dad chose embrace to avoid confronting trauma. He transformed torture into purpose, abuse into love, delusion into protection. Breaking that cycle meant understanding its appeal. Medical records from state archives showed Dad's devotion even as a teenager, volunteering for extended sessions, pushing harder than required, seeking Dr. Bell's approval like a father figure. The obsessive tendencies predated the trauma, making him the perfect vessel for a madman's theories. The realization that Dad genuinely couldn't see the abuse hit hard. His reality was too distorted by trauma and exhaustion. He lived in a world where fatal insomnia was real, where his vigilance saved his children, where every sleepless night was an act of love. Arguing with delusion was like fighting smoke. My commitment shifted from punishment to rehabilitation. Sam needed saving, but Dad needed help. The system that failed to protect children could still mandate treatment for mental illness. Justice didn't require destruction, just separation and healing. The custody hearing loomed with Sam's welfare hanging in the balance. Both sides prepared arguments about love, protection, and harm. The truth would emerge through exhausted testimony and documented patterns. A judge would decide if unusual meant abusive, if mental illness negated parental rights, if children deserved sleep more than parents deserved freedom. The witness's written statement about Dr. Bell's clinic death changed everything. Victoria, one of the few survivors willing to speak, detailed how a 12-year-old boy had walked into traffic during hour 96 of forced wakefulness. The child saw dragons where cars existed, chased imaginary butterflies into the intersection. Dr. Bell blamed weak genetics. The state shut down the clinic within days, but his disciples scattered like seeds, carrying his theories home to their families. I delivered Victoria's statement to the evaluator myself, watching her face shift as she read. The parallels to Sam's situation were impossible to ignore. A child forced awake, hallucinating from exhaustion, one moment of confusion away from tragedy. The evaluator made copies, added them to the growing file that would determine my brother's fate. That afternoon, I discovered Dad had been lying to the evaluator about his own sleep patterns. His coworker Bob posted a photo of Dad asleep at his desk, head down on blueprints, coffee cold beside him. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. I screenshot it immediately, understanding what it meant. Dad slept. He allowed himself rest while denying it to his children. The hypocrisy burned worse than any drops ever had. The medical records from Dr. Bell's clinic arrived through official channels, pulled from state archives after multiple requests. Page after page documented Dad's teenage devotion. He'd volunteered for every experimental protocol, begged for higher stimulant doses, wrote essays about humanity's evolution beyond biological needs. Even among the other desperate insomniacs, 17-year-old Dad stood out for his fervor. One notation from Dr. Bell caught my attention. He'd written that my father showed exceptional dedication to the cause and leadership potential among the younger subjects. Dad hadn't just been a patient. He'd been groomed as a successor, chosen to carry forward a madman's legacy. The trauma ran deeper than I'd imagined. The evaluator scheduled Dad's testimony for the following week. I watched him prepare, saw his hands shake as he organized his evidence. He truly believed he'd be vindicated, that the court would recognize his protective vigilance. His Facebook posts grew more erratic, warning about genetic curses and children who betrayed their saviors. During Dad's testimony, the truth emerged in fragments. He admitted to forcing us awake for over a decade, justified it as necessary evolution. He explained the drops, the bells, the proving time as training for genetic destiny. When asked about his own sleep, he grew agitated, insisting he only took strategic micronaps to maintain his guard. The evaluator pressed harder. Dad's composure cracked. He revealed he hadn't slept more than 2 consecutive hours since Dr. Bell's death. He existed on stimulants and determination, convinced that full sleep would activate the fatal insomnia. His children needed protection from their DNA, and only his vigilance stood between them and genetic doom. Then came the admission that changed everything. Dad broke down completely, sobbing about the shadows he saw, the voices that whispered about weakness. He'd been hallucinating for years, fighting off the same exhaustion-induced visions he forced his children to endure. In trying to save us from imaginary insomnia, he'd given us real sleep deprivation. The evaluator ordered immediate psychological evaluation for Dad. 2 psychiatrists confirmed what I'd suspected: complex PTSD from the clinic abuse, delusional disorder focused on genetic insomnia, severe chronic sleep deprivation exacerbating both conditions. Dad wasn't evil. He was profoundly ill, trapped in a teenager's trauma, trying to protect his children from his own unprocessed pain. Mom's testimony came next. She sat small in the witness chair, hands folded, voice barely audible. She admitted knowing the wake watch was harmful, but feeling too exhausted to resist. She'd tried protecting us early on, but years of sleep deprivation wore down her judgment. By the time she recognized the abuse, she lacked the clarity to stop it. The journal entries were read into record. Mom's descent from concerned mother to complicit enabler, documented in her own shaking handwriting. She wept as her words were read back, showing how exhaustion had warped her reality until Dad's delusions seemed reasonable. The evaluator noted Mom's own need for treatment, her decade of sleep deprivation requiring medical intervention. Sam's testimony was scheduled for a private session with child specialists. I wasn't allowed inside, but waited in the hallway, pacing worn courthouse tiles. Through the door, I heard his small voice describing Wake Watch, the proving time, the drops that burned. He still defended Dad, insisting they were special, evolved, chosen. But when asked about his dreams, Sam went quiet. He didn't know what dreams were. He'd never experienced them. The specialists emerged with careful expressions. Sam showed signs of chronic exhaustion, cognitive delays from sleep deprivation, and deeply internalized beliefs about genetic superiority. But no permanent damage yet. With proper intervention, normal sleep schedules, and therapy, he could recover fully. The word yet hung heavy in the courthouse air. Mrs. Patterson testified about Sam's classroom exhaustion, bringing documentation she'd gathered over months. Her voice stayed steady as she described finding Sam asleep standing up. up, watching him struggle through lessons with glazed eyes. She'd wanted to report earlier but feared losing her job. Now, facing suspension anyway, she provided every detail she'd observed. The Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Chen, appeared as a witness, describing how she'd let Sam nap during activities because children need rest to grow. She'd noticed his exhaustion immediately, had tried discussing it with my parents. Dad had explained about their special family constitution, their evolution beyond sleep. Mrs. Chen hadn't bought it but lacked authority to intervene beyond offering quiet moments of rest. Former clinic patients testified via written statements, too fragile to appear in person. They described Dr. Bell's methods, the long-term damage, the suicides and breakdowns among survivors. A pattern emerged. Those who embraced the insomnia ideology survived by passing trauma to their children. Those who rejected it struggled with lifelong sleep disorders and trust issues. There was no winning, only different ways of losing. The state's expert witness, a specialist in sleep disorders, explained fatal familial insomnia to the court. The disease was real but incredibly rare, affecting maybe 30 families worldwide. It was genetic but not activated by sleep. No amount of forced wakefulness could prevent or trigger it. Dad's fears were based on fundamental misunderstanding of the disease that called Dr. Bell. Dad's reaction to this testimony was devastating. He shook his head violently, insisted the expert didn't understand, that Dr. Bell had discovered something the medical establishment refused to acknowledge. His lawyer tried calming him, but Dad grew more agitated, shouting about evolution and protection and children who didn't understand sacrifice. The court officers stepped closer. Finally, Dad collapsed, not physically, but emotionally. The weight of delusion cracked, and for a moment, clarity broke through. He looked at me across the courtroom and whispered something I couldn't hear. His lawyer requested a recess. When they returned, Dad seemed smaller, older, like a man waking from a decade-long nightmare. The judge ordered comprehensive evaluation for the entire family. Social workers, psychiatrists, medical doctors would assess our needs. Sam would undergo sleep studies to document the damage. Mom and Dad would receive psychiatric treatment. The court would reconvene in 90 days to determine custody based on treatment progress and Sam's best interests. Those 90 days passed in a blur of appointments and evaluations. Sam was placed in temporary foster care with a family experienced in trauma recovery. I visited when allowed, watching my brother learn what bedtime meant without bells. He struggled at first, his body trained to fight sleep, but gradually, he began to rest. Real rest, not the micro naps between proving times. The sleep study results confirmed what we'd suspected. Sam suffered from severe sleep deficit, his growth hormones disrupted, his cognitive development delayed, but children are resilient. With consistent sleep schedules and medical support, the specialist predicted full recovery. He'd lost years of dreams, but he could still learn to fly through clouds like Megan Torres had described so long ago. Dad entered intensive psychiatric treatment, both inpatient and outpatient therapy, addressing his PTSD and delusions. The first weeks were rough. He fought the diagnosis, insisted on protecting his children from genetic doom, but medication and therapy began untangling Dr. Bell's influence from Dad's own thoughts. Slowly, he started seeing what he'd done. Mom's recovery progressed faster. Away from Dad's influence, with proper sleep and therapy, her codependency issues became clear. She'd been a victim too, worn down by exhaustion until enabling seemed like love. Her therapist worked on rebuilding her sense of self, helping her understand how she'd lost herself in Dad's delusions. The final custody hearing arrived with winter's first snow. All parties had completed their evaluations. The judge reviewed months of documentation, testimony, and treatment progress. Dad appeared calmer, the wild terror gone from his eyes. He'd gained weight, lost the constant tremor. Therapy had given him words for his trauma, understanding of how Dr. Bell had exploited vulnerable teenagers. Dad addressed the court directly, his voice steady but thick with emotion. He acknowledged the abuse, took responsibility for stealing his children's sleep. He understood now that his terror of fatal insomnia had created real suffering. He wanted to heal, to someday earn the chance to be a father without fear. But he recognized that day wasn't today. The judge's decision was measured and careful. Sam would be placed in my temporary custody while continuing therapy. Mom would have supervised visits as she continued treatment. Dad's parental rights were suspended pending completion of intensive therapy and demonstration of sustained stability. The family would attempt therapeutic reunification only when mental health professionals deemed it safe. I became Sam's guardian that day, responsible for the brother I'd left behind. We moved into a small apartment, nothing fancy but ours. That first night, I tucked him in at 8:30 p.m. No bells, no drops, no proving time, just a glass of water and a nightlight. Sam lay rigid at first, expecting the bell. When it didn't come, he looked at me with confusion that broke my heart. The healing took time. Sam would wake at 9:17 p.m. for months, body programmed to that terrible schedule. I'd find him sitting up in bed, waiting for instructions. Each time, I'd gently remind him he could sleep, that he was safe. Gradually, the wake-ups decreased. His body learned to trust rest again. We attended therapy together, unpacking years of trauma disguised as love. Sam struggled with feeling disloyal to Dad, with losing his sense of being special and evolved. The therapist helped him understand that being ordinary, being human, needing sleep, these weren't weaknesses. They were birthrights stolen by a broken man's broken logic. 6 months later, we had our first family therapy session. Dad looked like a different person. Rested, present, medicated. He apologized to Sam, taking full responsibility. He explained how Dr. Bell had hurt him, how that hurt had twisted into hurting others. He was learning to live without fear, to trust sleep, to believe his children were safe without his vigilance. Mom attended too, stronger now, her own therapy giving her tools to set boundaries. She apologized for failing to protect us, for choosing exhaustion over intervention. The family therapist guided us through the pain, helping us understand how trauma traveled through generations, how healing required breaking cycles. Sam started sleeping through the night. He discovered dreams, real ones, not hallucinations. He'd wake excited, describing adventures his mind created during rest. His growth caught up, his grades improved, his laughter returned. The shadows under his eyes faded. He looked like a child again, not a tiny soldier in a war against sleep. Dad's treatment continued, his progress steady but slow. He'd likely need therapy and medication indefinitely. The delusions had roots too deep for quick fixes, but he was trying, attending every session, taking every med, doing the work to separate Dr. Bell's voice from his own thoughts. He sent letters to Sam, carefully reviewed by therapists, expressing love without manipulation. The bell disappeared from our lives. I found out later that Mom had thrown it away, along with the brown bottles and that photo of Dr. Bell. She was rebuilding her life too, rediscovering interests buried buried under a decade of exhaustion. She took up knitting again, different scarves this time, ones she actually finished. Our story didn't end with dramatic confrontation or legal victory. It ended with Sam sleeping peacefully at 9:17 p.m. while I watched from his doorway. It ended with Dad in therapy learning that love doesn't require fear. It ended with Mom finishing a scarf and giving it away. It ended with me finally understanding that some cycles break slowly, through small acts of defiant rest. The investigation into Mrs. Patterson was dropped, her job restored. She kept teaching, kept watching for tired children, kept believing that exhaustion wasn't normal. Mrs. Chen continued letting tired children rest during Sunday school. The community learned in small ways to see what they'd missed. Recovery wasn't linear. Sam had nightmares about bells. I still checked my pulse when stressed. Mom startled at sudden sounds. Dad fought delusions that whispered about genetic doom. But we were healing, separately and together, learning that rest wasn't weakness and wakefulness wasn't strength. 2 years later, supervised reunification began. Short visits in therapeutic settings, building slowly toward healing. Dad had to earn trust drop by drop, proving his love could exist without fear. The work was hard, the progress incremental. Some damage couldn't be undone, only acknowledged and grieved. But Sam slept. Every night at a reasonable hour, he closed his eyes and trusted the morning would come. He dreamed of ordinary things, school, friends, flying through clouds. No more shadow people, no more proving time, no more bells in the darkness. Just a boy learning to rest, a family learning to heal, and the radical act of choosing sleep over fear. The cycle broke not with force, but with exhaustion finally winning its rightful victory. We surrendered to our human need for rest, and in that surrender, found the strength that Dr. Bell never understood. We weren't evolved beyond sleep. We were human, beautifully ordinary, deserving of dreams. Thanks for reading this story with me. It really made me think about how tired kids can hide big problems. I hope you have a wonderful day full of good rest.